Hi, welcome back to Z-fari, the zombie novel. In this little video snippet today, we're going to finish up chapter 6 and read all of chapter 7. It's not very long, because it's the weekend. And coincidentally, this little snippet's all about the zombie hunters and their weekends. So if you're ready, sit back, relax, and enjoy. It was a good week on the platform for Ike, Bibi, and Sally. By Friday morning, Ike had a total of 3 hits. Bibi had 5 and Sally had 2. Bibi bought a bottle of cheap champagne with him to the platform for his Friday shift. Before Ike left, Bibi popped the cork and pulled 2 red Solo cups out of his backpack. The 2 men toasted their good fortune. When Sally arrived at 4 p.m. for her shift, Bibi walked to the refrigerator in the shed and pulled out the champagne again. After Sally tossed off her glass, she grabbed the champagne bottle, shook up what was left in the bottle, and sprayed the bubbly all over the platform. And she gave Bibi a kiss on the cheek. By Friday afternoon, Willie had gotten much of his strength back, and his infection was controlled. Dr. McDougal called his assistant over. "It looks like Willie has recovered enough to begin phase 3 on Monday. Be sure to make sure that the lab is in order before you leave." And he got up from his desk, walked to the elevator, and left. Allison spent the next hour cleaning and straightening, checking the electronic monitors, fine-tuning the settings on the data crunching programs. Before she turned off the lights, she walked over to the zombie, stopped, and turned her back to him. She waited 5 long seconds to heighten the suspense, and in her spookiest voice said, "Slowly I turned," and she did. Step by step, and she moved closer to the zombie she secretly called Curly. And her best surprised voice said, "Oh, a wise guy, eh?" and tweaked his nose. She laughed so hard that she almost tripped as she walked over to the elevator and turned off the lab's lights. The weekend in the lab was quiet. The only sounds that anyone might have heard were the peaceful dripping of urine and diarrhea off the seat of the Jerry the Zombie's restraint chair, and an occasional soft moan or simpering sob from Willie. Sergeant Earhart needed to blow off some steam. She ran 6 miles Saturday morning. She discovered that she needed more physical activity to ease the stress of the past week. She checked with her gym online and was happily surprised that she was able to sign up for a spinning class Saturday afternoon and a pole class Sunday evening. Before the Saturday class, she cleaned the kitchen and bathroom until they shone. After the class, she made popcorn, curled up on the couch, and found a Western Fest on cable. Between her run Sunday morning and the class Sunday evening, Emily washed and waxed her baby, the black and gold 1977 Pontiac Trans Am SE that her daddy had given her when he thought that he was too old to drive it anymore, and made herself a crock-pot pot roast that would be ready after the class. She put a bottle of the organic Chilean Merlot she had found on sale into the fridge to cool. She knew that it was wrong, but she would probably add a couple of ice cubes to her glass with dinner. After she finished her dinner and had washed the dishes and put away the leftovers, she took a leisurely bath with bubbles, dried off, slipped her favorite Manitoba Moose hockey jersey over her head, hopped into bed, and curled up with a new Eloisa James novel, with the toys in her bedside table close at hand. Bibi walked into town Friday night after dinner and bought 2 6-packs of beer. When he returned to Mrs. McGee's, he found her sitting on the front porch, softly playing a little harp. It seemed like she was plucking soft, round notes out of the air, the melody floating lightly on the evening breeze. "What's that song?" he asked, sitting down in the chair next to her. She smiled but said nothing while she finished the song, and then she said, "Pachelbel's Canon. It's one of my favorites." "It's nice," he said. "Would you like a beer?" "Absolutely," she said, taking the offered can. "There's a long history of drunken harpists in Ireland." "Is that an Irish harp?" Bibi asked her. "Technically, it's a lap harp, but it's Celtic in design. I'll play you an Irish song by a blind Irish harpist, Lord Galway Lament, by Turlough O'Carolan." As she played, Bibi finished one beer and started another. The little harp sounded beautiful. When she finished, Bibi didn't quite know what to do, so he clapped. Mrs. McGee laughed and said, "Thank you, kind sir," and took a big swig of her beer. "Do you know how success is measured for a musician, Bibi?" "No, ma'am." "If the audience likes you, they applaud. If they like you more, they dance. If they like you a lot, they buy you a drink. If they really like you, they pay you. Mrs. McGee laughed and drained the beer. And sometimes they'll do all four. Bibi laughed along with her and handed her another beer. Let's see if you like my playing enough to dance, Mr. Duvalier, she said, and began to pluck the strings again. Bibi listened and realized that he knew the song. Hey, that's Ripple by the Grateful Dead. My maman used to play that for me when I was little. And Bibi stood, beer in hand, and spun around the porch. Ah, another twirling hippie, she said as she played. Bibi got up early Saturday morning and went on a leisurely run. Running usually helped him think, but this morning Bibi wasn't thinking about much except running. When he finished, he took a shower. He walked into the kitchen and asked Mrs. McGee, "Sometime this weekend, would you please give me a lift to the range? I need to practice with this Barrett." She looked at him and said, "If you eat these 3 pancakes, I'll change my clothes and take you over." The range was about 2 miles east of Mrs. McGee's house. As they pulled into the parking lot, Bibi said, "I didn't realize that it was so close. I can walk home when I'm finished." "If you change your mind and want to ride, give me a call," Mrs. McGee said. "Yes, ma'am, thanks." Bibi shot 10 magazines and collected all of the brass to reload. It was a beautiful afternoon, so he did walk back to Mrs. McGee's. He took his used brass to the basement, cleaned the Barrett, and then went upstairs for a shower. He checked his phone and found that the newest installment of the Star Wars franchise was playing in Derby, about 1.5 miles from Mrs. McGee's. The first show started at 8. Just to be polite, he asked Mrs. McGee if she would like to go. She begged off, saying that that was not her kind of movie and that she would have dinner ready a little before 6 so that he could get to the show on time. She promised chicken salad for dinner. Bibi woke up around 7 a.m. The movie last night was so good that he thought briefly about seeing it again on Sunday. He laughed. No, he had work to do, but it was Sunday. So he showered and put on better clothes, khakis, a faded orange polo shirt, and loafers and a belt that matched them. He went downstairs to the kitchen. Mrs. McGee was there. She was almost always in the kitchen whenever he went into that room in the house, and asked him if he'd like any breakfast. He said no, but asked if there was a Baptist church nearby. Yes, there is. The First 94th Street Missionary Baptist Church of Christ, about 1 mile away. It's an African-American church, she added. They've got the best music, Bibi said. Mrs. McGee looked confused. Oh, I'm not a church-going Christian, but I love good music. The Episcopalians are pretty good, but the Baptists have the best choirs, Bibi explained. I went to a Baptist church in Memphis, and the service lasted 3 hours. The best singing I've ever heard. Well then, she said, have fun. I'll have sandwiches, potato salad, and iced tea for lunch at noon or so. Thanks, Bibi said, walking out the door. I'll see you then. Bibi found the church and an empty seat in the back row. The service was lively. The choir was small but talented. They sang all of the songs that Bibi knew, and he softly sang the bass parts to the hymns. He had fun. After church, he introduced himself to the pastor and his wife and thanked them. They invited him back for the services next Sunday. Bibi allowed as how he would like that. Bibi returned to Mrs. McGee's, close enough to noon that they shared a relaxed and pleasant lunch. Bibi offered to wash the dishes, and Mrs. McGee showed him where the rack, the soap, and the dish towels were, and then left him to his chore. After he finished, he went down into the basement and set up his reloading gear. Once he got it all the way he liked, he meticulously reloaded all of the brasses he had used on the platform during the week and at the range on Saturday. He was ready for work on Monday. Mrs. McGee asked Bibi if he would like to order a pizza for dinner. There was a place that delivered. Bibi jumped at the chance to take some of the cooking from Mrs. McGee, and he hadn't had a pizza in months. She said that she liked pepperoni with extra cheese. Bibi told her that sounded great. After they finished the pizza, Mrs. McGee asked him if he'd ever played draw bridge. What's that? Bibi asked. It's kind of a 2-person contract bridge. Some people call it honeymoon bridge, she said. My family never played bridge, he said. My cousins played pinochle like fiends, but the only card games Maman and Papa told me were poker and cribbage. Cribbage? Mrs. McGee asked, a twinkle in her eye. My papa taught it to me to help me learn arithmetic. Would you like to play a few games for money? She asked, opening a drawer and pulling out a well-used cribbage board and a new deck of cards. My papa warned me to beware of hustlers, ma'am, he said. A penny a point to start?